Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare.
Chanting in a minute. Just going to explain a bit what the chanting's about. Have any of you, is this the first time some of you have come to any Krishna gathering? Any of you been to a temple before? Yes? Been to a temple before? A Krishna temple? I don't know who you are, you have to tell me. Have you been to the temple before?
Yeah, I've been here before,
okay.
And I've been to the one in Soho as well.
Okay. And the gentleman at the back, three of you?
I've been to Watford.
Watford? Okay, so you know about chanting a little bit? Yeah. But I have to tell you, if you don't chant, you don't get any supper. No? No chant, no supper. So you're singing for your supper. We have a phrase in England, we say a little saying, you've got to sing for your supper. So you've got to sing for your supper. Even if you can't chant in tune, it doesn't matter, you can say it. Sometimes we don't have a sense, some people don't have a sense of musical sense. Doesn't matter, but say it at least. You know? To actually, so your mouth is moving and you actually can hear yourself chant. That's important, to hear the chanting. So if there's a lot of loud chanting around you, you have to do it louder so you can hear it. Because the transcendental sound it isn't just we're doing a little social sing-song here. This is transcendental sound. Transcendental sound, not on the mundane platform. Krishna is one of the names of the Supreme Lord. God has so many names. In the West we know Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, Adonai. From the East we have names Krishna, Vishnu, Chaitanya, Govinda, Gopala, Rishikesh, Yogeshwar, Madhusudana. Millions and millions and millions of names. In one sense God doesn't have a name. But in others, well, he does. But these names aren't designations. Sometimes in this world we see, I don't know how many of you coming from different countries with different languages. Everyone speaks English, okay? Who speaks a different language to English? Yes, what is that? Hindi? What is it? Gujarati?
Hindi, Punjabi.
Punjabi?
Yeah.
What's the Punjabi word for the sun?
Top.
Speak up.
Doop.
Two.
Doop.
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 Doop. Doop.
Doop.
Doop. Okay. Doop. Any advances on doop? Another language. Doop. What's Irish for the sun?
The green. It's actually
Green.
Yeah, Tom, green Ektan means the sun is shining.
Green Dektaneth.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, Green Dektaneth, but not down here, we're in the basement. But anyway, Green Dektaneth. So Green, that's Celt Irish for the sun. Anyone else come from anywhere else? Where are you from? Trinidad?
Jamaica.
Jamaica. What's the language?
English.
It's English, isn't it? Oh, there's colonial, isn't it? Yeah. So you, I mean, your root culture. Originally, do you know any African names for the sun?
Yeah, I think there is.
Oh, there's lots of them, yeah. But I get a lot of sun in Africa, originally, you know. So we have Le Soleil, the sun, French, Le Sol, the sun. What's Hindi for the sun? Surya, yeah. So lots of different names. But how many suns are there in the sky? One Supreme Lord. So many different names for God. Some names for God are designations. Some are designations. But some are intrinsic and inseparable from God. In other words, the Supreme Lord, these names, he's addressed by these names in the realm of transcendence. Not just here. Not in the material world, or even the higher realms, but actually in the realm of transcendence, Goloka and Vaikuntha. The Lord there is actually addressed by his eternal names. They're eternal names, not temporary. We say the sun. Will the English language be around 15,000 years from now? Who knows? Will it be around, 50 years from now? Who knows? Languages come and go. Languages get lost. You've got a department down the road, the British Museum, library, and they have languages there that no one knows. You've got all the, sometimes you have the scripts even, they find these ancient writings carved and no one knows what the language is. It's gone. The culture's gone. But the names of God are eternal. So Krishna is one of the names of the Supreme Lord, the all-attractive, all-attractive. Rama, the reservoir of pleasure. And Hare is the spiritual potency of the Lord. That's Radha. You say Radha Krishna. That's Hare. Shrimati Radha Rani. Radha Krishna. So this transcendental sound, actually we're invoking this vibration from the transcendental platform. It's coming from the transcendental platform, not the material platform. Same stuff, isn't it? Material, matter. It's not from the mental platform, or the emotional platform, or even the level of intelligence. It's coming from the transcendental platform. It's coming from the soul platform, the level of pure consciousness. And it takes a little while to practice chanting. How to chant and hear. It's about hearing. So the process we have here, kirtan, is congregational chanting, in the basement, in the temple, and on the street. And then we have the process of japa, which some of you know about, chanting on beads. We love to chant our Krishna chanting beads. So this has been going on for aeons of time. And it's recently been introduced to the West in the 60s by A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami, Srila Prabhupada, who brought the Krishna movement here. So So this chanting is a very nice way of connecting ourselves with the Supreme Lord. So please try and chant. Don't be shy. Don't be shy about chanting. And thank you for the percussion. It's very nice. It's very encouraging when people are shaking things and rattling bits and pieces. It's very nice. But don't forget to chant. If it's a choice between shaking the maracas and chanting, better you chant. Because shaking maracas isn't going to get you out of samsara. Shaking maracas isn't going to get you out of birth and death. But if you shake maracas and chant Hare Krishna, you get extra points. So please do the instruments, but don't forget to chant at the same time. We'll chant a bit more. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Thank you for joining in. Oh, it is. That's right. Can you pass me a Bhagavad Gita, the little one? In the middle. That's it.
Show to him upstairs that he's found one. Show to him.
Powerful.
Oh, you know, okay. What do you mean? What do you mean?
Say no more.
Expand. Moving on.
So we're reading from Bhagavad Gita, as it is, translation and purport by His Divine Grace, S. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. So this is chapter 10, entitled The Opulence of the Absolute. We've only got 2 meters here, so I'll just chant the Sanskrit and then the word for word. Aham atma gudaikasya sarva bhuta shayastitaha aham adishcha madhyam cha bhutanamanta eva cha aham atma gudakesha sarva bhuta shayastituhu stataha aham adishcha madhyam cha bhutanamanta eva cha. Please repeat the word for word. Aham, I. Atma, the soul. Gudakesha, O Arjuna. Sarvabhuta, of all living entities. Ashayastita, situated within the heart. Aham, I am. Adihi, the origin. Cha, also. Madhyam, middle. Cha, also. Bhutanam, of all living entities. Anta, end. Eva, certainly. Cha, and. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. That's okay. Oh, I want the other one here. Hare Krishna. Yeah. So here's the translation. I am the Super Soul, O Arjuna, seated in the hearts of all living entities. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. So please repeat. I am the Self, O Gudakesh, seated in the hearts of all creatures. I am the beginning, the middle, and the end of all beings. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. In this verse, Arjuna is addressed as Gudakesh, which means one who has conquered the darkness of sleep. For those who are sleeping in the darkness of ignorance, it is not possible to understand how the Supreme Godhead manifests himself in the material and spiritual worlds. Thus, this address by Krishna to Arjuna is significant because Arjuna is above such darkness. The personality of Godhead agrees to describe his various opulences. This chapter is called The Opulence of the Absolute. So sometimes people, powerful men, they take pride in the opulence of having a lot of influence. A powerful person, or an influential person, or a famous person, there's a sense of intoxication to be found from having, your name is known all over the world, in all different parts of the world, either because of your music, or your power, or your prowess. But even such a famous person can only ever be in one place at once. He might have his influence, and he might have his servants, he might have his henchmen, he might have his armies, he might have his spies in different places. But we can only ever be in one place at once. And yet the Supreme Lord is in all places, all the time. Not all places just for the next few minutes, or not all places for the past few centuries, but all places, all the time. And we mean all places. Places we can't even see. Places we've never been to. Places we've never dreamt of. The Supreme Lord is all pervasive. And he's not just pervasive in terms of just energy, but he's actually fully cognizant of all things in all places. Because he's the super soul in the heart, or it's called the Param Atma. We have the individual soul, which is called the Jiva Atma, the atomic soul. That's you and I. You're just in one place, I'm in one place. And we don't even know all the things that are happening here in this body. I mean, is there a certain time in the month when you think, well, I've got to concentrate now and get my fingernails to grow? Do you ever do that? Maybe after a meal, you say, well, I've got to sit down and help my digestion a little bit. But you don't have to sit down and think, well, now I've got to digest this food, I've got to meditate. No, we don't do that. It's being done for us. And we're not even aware of what's going on in the body. Sometimes we have a pain. And maybe years later the doctors tell you, well, you've got a growth there. We didn't even know about it. And it was right there. Right? Right there, or even here, or wherever it happens to be. We're not cognizant of everything that's even happening here. In fact, we only know a tiny bit of what's happening here. I want to speak of what's around the corner. We don't know. We're very limited. Our consciousness is infinitesimal. It's called the Jiva Atma, a fragment of consciousness. One of our devotees, Sadhguru, described it as a quantum of consciousness, for those who are scientifically minded. A quantum of consciousness, an indivisible particle. And that's you and me. But the Supreme Consciousness, the Supreme Lord, is actually present everywhere. And he's still one person. How can someone be perceiving everything throughout all time and all space and still be a person? He's the Supreme Person. The Supreme Person. So this is Paramatma. Krishna informs Arjuna that he is the self, or the soul, of the entire cosmic manifestation. The entire cosmic manifestation, by dint of his primary expansion. His primary expansion. So not only is the Supreme Lord present everywhere, but he doesn't even do it personally himself as Krishna. He expands himself and gets one of his expansions to do it. Before the material creation, the Supreme Lord, by his plenary expansion, accepts the Purusha incarnations, and from him everything begins. So there's different incarnations of the Lord mentioned here. Everything comes from the expansion, the expansion, the expansion of the Lord. So Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin of everything. Even the different incarnations of God are originating in Krishna. But his first expansion is Balaram. Because we say first expansion, in our linear way of thinking, we think of, was there a time when Balaram, if Krishna first expands himself, or was there a time when there was no Balaram? No, it's eternal. But Balaram's eternal. He's the Lord, Krishna himself. Balaram, Srila Prabhupada explained, Balaram is just like Krishna, except he's whitish in colour. He's whitish. Krishna is this dark bluish grey, blackish bluish colour. So Krishna expands himself as Balaram. Balaram expands himself as Sankarshan. Sankarshan expands the four, or Chaturvyuha, Sankarshan, Pradyumna, Aniruddha, and Vasudeva. These are the four-armed Vishnu expansions. And Sankarshan expands himself as Mahavishnu. He expands himself in Kshirodakshai Vishnu, Garbhodakshai Vishnu. So many expansions of expansions, and they're all God. All God. And yet the origin of all this is Krishna. That's why we say Krishna is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. The Supreme Personality of Godhead. So one of Krishna's expansions, as Kshirodakshai Vishnu, is the Supersoul in the heart of us all. The same Lord is in the heart of every living being. Not just you and I, but the pigeons in the road, the tree down the road, even the cells in the body. Everyone is a living entity, and there is a Supersoul within the heart of every living being. You take a cell from your body. Any scientists here, from a scientific background? Oh, you have. What was your speciality?
Well, I actually sort of was trained in psychology, which isn't a hard science,
Okay.
but I have a kind of sort of understanding of science.
Well, if you take a few
Science
cells
degree.
from a body
Yeah.
and put it in a petri dish with the little nutrients, the cells will multiply. Human cells, because they're living entities. The supersoul's there. And what to speak of the cells, the supersoul is also present in every atom. Every atom. Inconceivable. So this is the all-pervasiveness of God. When I was a little kid in kindergarten, and we had scripture lessons, we didn't call it RA, scripture lessons. We used to read from the Bible because it was a Christian school. And one time I said, Miss, how is God everywhere? They say, well, God's everywhere. I said, how is God everywhere? So I didn't really get a very satisfactory answer. I said, well, the lady who was our form teacher, she said, he's like smoke. God's like smoke.
That's a nebulous answer.
So I didn't really, you can see smoke kind of drifts around everywhere, but it's not really, you cannot compare smoke to a person. I mean, people do smoke, not so much these days, but how can we say that God is like smoke? Because we don't have much information in the West. Yet if you go to Vedic writings of India, so much information about the nature of consciousness, what is the soul, what is Godhead, etc. So Krishna's explaining here in the Bhagavad Gita that it's he who is the super soul within the heart. Therefore, Prabhupada says, he is Atma, the soul of the Mahatattva, that is the universal elements. The total material energy is not the cause of creation, but actually the Mahavishnu enters into this Mahatattva, the total material creation, and he is the soul. So God is the soul of the universe. The universe rests upon the Supreme Lord. There are those who study the effect, they study the elements, they study the material manifestation, and conclude that there's no source, there's no cause, it's just all happening by chance. And this is a gross foolishness, really very gross foolishness. Even in recent years, there are many scientists who are theists. Not everyone is atheistic amongst the scientific community. But if you voice your religious views, it's generally frowned upon in scientific circles. In fact, you can even lose your job, lose your post, if you say, well, actually, I'm a theist, I believe in God. So, the high priests of scientism, the scientists, their opinions are generally accepted without question. If you read in the newspapers or some articles say that scientists say, scientists have said, don't believe it. Well, we're actually becoming more cynical because people can see, without any higher understanding of the purpose of things, scientists will lead us up the garden path. And not only that, but politicians and businessmen will utilize inventions of science for their own nefarious, self-centered purposes. So, scientists have their authorities, their various scientific authorities, and many times we find throughout history what is accepted as a scientific fact after a period of a few decades, it's all out the window because a new theory is coming. New theory is coming. So now they're quoting a new authority, as if this isn't science. Science deals with reality. You have a theory, and you test the theory with an experiment. And on the basis of the experiment, you form a conclusion. That's science. But if the experiments don't hold true in terms of that theory, then that theory is erroneous. But science means theory, experiment, and conclusion. But of course there are some things that we cannot test in the field of gross materialism. You can't see the mind with a microscope. Has anyone seen the mind? But everyone agrees we've got a mind. Now science may say that the mind is a product of electrical activity in the brain. This is what generally science says. But there are cases, and there are a number of cases of people, believe it or not, who actually don't have brains. I'm going to talk about politicians here. People who actually immeasurably have just got basically a fluid in the skull, or a tiny little bit of ganglion, and yet they behave perfectly. I don't know if you're familiar with any of this, but there are documented cases of people with not much inside there, and yet they seem to be functioning, perfectly okay. And whether the higher faculties are stunted or not, we don't know. But they're okay. Another chap, he had an iron rod went through his explosion went through his eye out the back. He went on a tour. He was a quarryman. He used to drill holes in the rock face, put an explosive in, tamp it down with this iron rod to put the explosives in before they blew up the rock face to get the rock. Anyway, this time this thing it created a spark, and this iron rod went straight through his eye, out the back of his head, and he survived. And he went on tour. And this is about 100 years ago. He went on tour all around the States with the iron rod, and that's how he used to maintain himself. He was, he went, I survived, So there's cases of that. So the brain isn't the mind is not the product of the brain. The brain is the interface between the gross and the subtle. It's an interface. And mind exists quite separately from gross matter. But mind is not conscious. We dream of the mind at night time. At night time we have so many images, some pleasant, some not pleasant. Beyond the mind is the intelligence. That's the thing that we're able to discriminate what is good for us and what is bad for us. Or with a darker intention, what is bad for others. We use our intelligence, how to create some weapon, how to create problems for him. Intelligence. That which we discriminate with intelligence. You have to have that. But who's doing the discriminating? That's you, the soul. The soul. That's you. We're beyond earth, water, fire. We're beyond air. We're beyond ether, space. We're beyond mind and intelligence. That's the soul. And accompanying you and I, the soul, is the super soul. Super soul. Parama. Parama. So Prabhupada says here, when the Mahavishnu enters the material manifested universes, he again manifests himself as the super soul in each and every living entity. We have experienced that the personal body of the living entity exists due to the presence of the spiritual spark. Without the existence of the spiritual spark, the body cannot develop. Similarly, the material manifestation cannot develop unless the Supreme Soul of Krishna enters. So what we call death, because when you and I, when we leave the body, and the body's dead, actually the body was never alive. But when the consciousness leaves and the soul leaves the body, we get rid of it. We don't want a body. Who wants a dead body? Embarrassment. Nobody wants a dead body. So similarly, without the presence of Krishna, without the presence of Super Soul within the heart of a living being, and within the heart of every atom, the material universe doesn't exist. It's being maintained by consciousness. Consciousness is the underlying principle in everything. Consciousness. The consciousness of the Supreme Lord is maintaining the whole material manifestation. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is existing as the Super Soul in all manifested universes. Not just this universe, all manifested universes. A description of the three Purusha avatars is given in the Srimad Bhagavatam. So, I brought along a copy of Srimad Bhagavatam. This is one little volume. When it was published, there were 70 volumes. 70 volumes. We didn't bring them all tonight because we've only got limited amount of time. But I wanted to just read a few verses which describe the super soul. Super soul.
Is this the original print? Is this the original print?
It is. It is the original print. Actually, this one says Prabhupada's own book. It's Divine Grace, H.C. Bhaktivinoda Swami
Wow, he
Prabhupada.
gave it to you.
So no, he didn't know. But it came into my possession. So this was Prabhupada used to read this book. It's Maha. So this is chapter is called Lord in the Heart. It's the second canto of Srimad Bhagavatam. Chapter 2, text 5. Just read a few. It's a little description about the super soul. Thus, being fixed, one must render service unto the super soul situated in one's own heart by his omnipotency. Omnipotency. Omni. What does omni mean?
Everywhere.
All. Yes. All and everywhere. Omnipotency. What does potency mean?
Powerful.
Powerful. Power. Yes. So omnipotency, all-pervasive potency. All-pervasive. Inconceivable. Unlimited potency. Because he is the almighty personality of Godhead, eternal and unlimited, he is the ultimate goal of life. And by worshipping him, one can end the cause of the conditioned state of existence. Who else but the gross materialists will neglect such transcendental thought and take to the non-permanent names only, seeing the mass of people fallen in the river of suffering as the consequence of accruing the result of their own work. It's a very deep verse. A lot going on there. But we're going to move on. Look at the description of the Lord in the heart. Others conceive of the personality of Godhead residing within the body in the region of the heart and measured only by 8 inches, with 4 hands carrying a lotus, a wheel of a chariot, a conch shell, and a club, respectively. So Prabhupada explains in the purport the Vedic description as the super soul in the heart of every living being. It's about the size from the tip of the tongue, the tip of the thumb, to the tip of the ring finger. Ring finger. Ring finger is your second finger. So that's the size of super soul in the heart. He's also inside every cell and every atom. So you could say he's overlapping. But at the same time he's not, because he's situated in one place and yet he's everywhere. It's not as if he's there and he's here and he's over there, but at the same time he's in one place and yet he's everywhere. So these apparent contradictions cannot be calculated by material or linear logic. Srila Prabhupada gives the example of the sun. The sun is in one place and you have many bowls of water, many bowls of water, and it appears from the reflection in the water that the sun is in many places, but actually it's not. The reflection is there in all the different bowls. So is the sun there? No, he's there. So in a similar way, although the super soul is present everywhere, at the same time he's also in one place. So now we have a description of his appearance. So he's roughly 8 inches, and in his 4 hands he carries a lotus, the wheel of a chariot, or the chakra, Sudarshan chakra, a conch shell, and a club. So God is present everywhere, but not just as an energy. He's personally present. God is personally present. The Supreme Lord is personally present in your heart and my heart. Everywhere. His mouth expresses his happiness. His eyes are spread like the petals of a lotus, and his garments are yellowish like the saffron of a kadamba flower, and bedecked with valuable jewels. His ornaments are all made of gold, set with jewels, and he wears a glowing headdress and earrings. So when we're speaking of gold and jewels and earrings and headdresses, this is not the stuff you can buy down in Harrods. The gold we're talking about is Chintamani. Actually, the gold, all these attributes of the Lord are all made of pure consciousness. So the gold we speak of is fully conscious, not something you can find here. The Lord's earrings are fully conscious. The Lord's vestments, his cloth, everything's made of Satchitananda. So when we describe the Lord as having form and attributes and paraphernalia, it's all totally spiritual. Totally spiritual. His lotus feet are placed over the whirl of the lotus-like hearts of great mystics. On his chest there is the Kaustuba jewel, engraved with a beautiful calf. And there are other jewels on his shoulders, and the complete torso is garlanded with fresh flowers. Fresh flowers. Not that they ever faded, because we're talking about eternity. The Lord is eternally situated like this with eternally fresh flowers. In fact, in the spiritual realm, everything's eternally fresh. Nothing gets old and stale. It's made of pure consciousness. So the form of the Lord is very, very beautiful. He is well decorated with an ornamental wreath about his waist and rings on his fingers studded with valuable jewels. His leglets, bangles, oiled hair curling with a bluish tint, and his beautiful smiling face are all very pleasing. The Lord's magnanimous pastimes and the glowing glancing of his smiling face are all indications of his extensive benedictions. One must therefore concentrate on this transcendental form of the Lord as long as the mind can be fixed on him by meditation. So, this is a very sweet description. And I had to wait a long, long time since I was a little boy to find out how God is actually everywhere. Not by smoke, but a super soul. So a very vivid description, very nice description of the Lord. So we're fortunate that even though we may be conditioned, we might not have full spiritual realization, we have some interest in Krishna consciousness, we have some interest in spiritual life. But these descriptions given in the Srimad Bhagavatam, the Bhagavad Purana, are actually giving us information that actually has been passed down by realized transcendentalists, by realized souls. So at the present moment, this is concept. It's a concept. I haven't realized that. Perhaps some of you have, but I haven't realized it. But in this age, although this process being given in this chapter is the process of mystic meditation, in this age, in Kali Yuga, this isn't actually possible. In this age of Kali Yuga, the process for God realization is the chanting of the holy name. It's the chanting of the holy name. Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Hare Nama, Kevalam. Kaloa Nasteva, 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 Katira Nita. Chanting at home on your beats, chanting in the temple, chanting on the street, to glorify the Lord's holy name. That's the way in this age. Because no one can sit down peacefully and meditate on the Super Soul. Not possible. Can you find a quiet place?
Yes.
Can you find a quiet mind? Can you live long enough? So many disturbances. In the Iron Age of Kali, men have but short lives. They're quarrelsome, lazy, misguided, unlucky, and above all, always disturbed. Huh? Look what they did. See what they did? And those guys over there. And you're looking, it's everywhere. We're being disturbed. Everywhere. Your next door neighbour, maybe your kids, maybe your spouse, maybe not. But the banks and the politicians and just one thing after another. Oh, disturbance, 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 disturbance. Because nobody knows how to act. Nobody knows how to behave. Nobody knows the purpose of life. In Kali Yuga, it's disappearing. And the older you get, you see, my God, just see how things have gone downhill. In the age of Kali, it's an ocean of faults. But the one benediction in this age, special dispensation, simply by chanting the holy names of the Lord, chanting Hare Krishna mantra, we can attain ultimate perfection. So that's why what Srila Prabhupada established, known as the Hare Krishna movement. It's a prime Those tend to describe it as the prime benediction for humanity at large. We may want to save this and save that. That's all very well, but it's here today and gone tomorrow. And how will it help you? We save the forest, save the planet, save the ozone, save the cows, save the whales, save the this, save the that. But what about you? Are you going to save yourself? Don't forget to save yourself. If you save yourself, then actually you can actually make some. You can actually have some potency. Otherwise, it's waves on the ocean. So thank you for coming. Maybe there's any questions.
So my female friends,
You got a few?
got quite a few, right, quite a few. They just love me, you know what I mean? I get lots of love.
I love you too.
Right, thank you. I'm talking to them about the Hare Krishna and Hare Krishna mantra.
Yeah.
And of course, they're feminist, and they say, oh, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. And I said, no, Hare means Radha.
Yeah.
And they say, suddenly, you know, they begin to realize, I'm telling them that the female Radha is always first and Krishna second in all his names and stuff. And then suddenly, you know, they begin to understand, you know, they appreciate a bit more.
That's very nice.
So they say, why didn't you call it Radha Krishna then?
Radha Krishna Temple.
Yes.
Radha Krishna Temple.
That's right. Yeah,
Hare Krishna mantra.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good point.
Yeah.
People do say that. So why is it so nice? Especially the feminists. They say,
Yes.
oh, why God a man? Well, you're interested in God, he's a man.
That's right.
No.
That's right.
He's Radha Krishna.
That's
The
right.
Supreme Lord. Eternally Radha Krishna.
Yeah.
You can't accept it.
His female side.
Yeah? And Radha's in charge.
That's right.
She's in charge.
That's right.
So that's why when we chant Hare Krishna mantra, hooray! Prabhupada said, it's like a cry of the child to the mother. The child is helpless. Mama! Mama! Hare! Krishna. Hare! Krishna. Krishna, Krishna. Hare, Hare! Hare! Rama. Hare! Rama. Rama, Rama. Hare! There's more Hares than anybody else. So we're calling for the mother Hare. Mother Radha. So this is a very nice process, hearing and chanting. I hope you're all blessings to your preaching programs.
Yes, they appreciate
Yeah,
it.
we come on to the Sangha.
Right.
Anything else? Yeah.
I meet so many people who are kind of interested in what we are doing on the street, what's this about. They may have even heard about the Hare Krishnas, but they all have this idea of it's all one, and they're very happy with that. And I normally explain this aspect that we know from scripture, what is what we are telling in your heart. But those who are convinced of it's all one, it's very difficult to get their heads around it. So where does that idea come from, and how do you have that to?
Well, where's the idea come from, and how do we deal with it? I remember hearing a story, because as soon as devotees started preaching in the West, the conflict or this difference of perception, the Mayavad or impersonalism versus personalism, it's always been there. And it's very easy to say it's all one, man. You know, it's all one. We're all God. Everything's God. I'm God. You're God. It's all one. So I remember hearing a story of one devotee. I believe it was in the States. So he was on the street, this argument. It's all one, man. It's all one. And everybody said, it's all one? Yes. So you, me, it's all the same. Yeah, man. Yeah, it's all the same. So I'm offering you this book. He said, yeah. But I don't need it because I'm God, you're God. So, yeah. So he said, well, it's all one. What's yours is mine, what's mine is yours. Yeah. Yeah. So give me the money in your wallet. So he's really on the spot, because it's all one. But whether it's in my wallet or not in my wallet, it's all one. So to his credit, this chap on the street, he said, okay man, it's all one. He gave him all the money in his wallet. And the devotee gave him a book. And about half an hour later he came back and said, hey man, I've given you all my money for my bus fare. Can you get a little bit back? So it isn't all one, is it? Really? If it's all one, let's give you I'm sure there's a few cleaning materials out the back. So let's give you some toilet cleaner in your cup. Right? It's all one. Drink toilet cleaner. Or anything. Go and eat dirt. It's all one. It's not all one. And nor am I God. Oh my God, really? We're trying to be, for millions of lifetimes, we're trying to be the enjoyer, thinking I'm number one. It's just a matter of time, you know? I've been around for 50 years. I've been around for 70 years. It hasn't quite worked out yet, but my latest plan, I'm going to start enjoying. Nobody really enjoys. We just spend a lifetime chasing our dreams. Isn't that your God? So then the impersonators say, well, you haven't realized you're God yet because you're still chasing this. Well, you've got to sit down, meditate, and realize actually it's all one. No, but God doesn't become God. God isn't, it doesn't become, He's always supreme. And you and I, we are of God. We're of God, yes. We're spiritual by nature. We're Satchitananda, like the Supreme Lord. But we're infinitesimal. And the infinitesimal never becomes the infinite. Never, never, never. If we were God, why would we need super soul to accompany us on our journey from life to life? No. We're dependent, always dependent upon the will of the Lord. We're dependent upon our external circumstances, we're dependent on our internal circumstances, and these are being supervised ultimately by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Sometimes it's a waste of time talking to these people. Sometimes it's a waste of time. But by good association and a little bit of logic, they're able to take prasadam. There are those who are impersonal by fashion or by habit, but they're not actually, they're not envious. Through not impersonalists through envy, but there are those who are dyed in the wool impersonalists, and they think that any descriptions of Godhead are all products of Maya. That's why they're known as Mayavadi. Vadi means doctrine, and their doctrine is that when the Supreme Lord appears within the realm of matter, He takes a form of matter, and when He returns, it all becomes one again. They're known as Mayavadis, but they have no conception of the qualities of Godhead or the variety within the realm of transcendence. They think variety is a quality of matter, which it is, but variety is also there in transcendence. So you have to approach it from a logical perspective, and some of it clicks. But it's very difficult because in the process of embracing this theory of oneness, words don't have any effect anymore. And then they end up saying, well, it's all words. It's all words. So if you say it's all words, you've lost the thread. Someone said, there's a fire! Fire! It's all words. It's all words. I'm gonna hit you over the head with a hammer. It's all words. Of course we don't do that, but it's not all words. Words are designations. Words have meaning. Maybe designated meaning, but words have some meaning. So, Mayavad philosophy, although there's recognition of the eternality of the soul, but the function of the soul, and identity, is not there. It's partial God realization. Yes, it's partial realization, Brahman realization. But there's a lot more. After all, we speak of love of God. Love of God. Love means lover and beloved. Lover and beloved. There's two. A loving exchange. Love isn't an abstract. So, for there to be love in the realm of transcendence, there has to be two. There's the lover and the beloved. The lover is the soul, the beloved is the Lord, and conversely, the Lord loves the devotee. So, the devotee, the eternal soul, is the beloved of God also. So, this exchange is going on. Get a little chant Hare Krishna, take your shadow. That's going to be good. It can be a waste of time trying to explain. But for the benefit of others, it's good to know the philosophy and be able to explain to the benefit of others. Because many of these people have heard this philosophy perhaps from their guru, because there's many impersonalist gurus and teachers, especially in India. It's over here now. This impersonalism has always gone on. It's not a recent manifestation. There's always those of an impersonal persuasion from the dawn of creation, because it's a state of consciousness of a conditioned soul. It's still conditioned. One isn't free from one isn't actually entered into one's eternal nature. Prabhupada explains
Impersonal realization is sat, realizing that I'm eternal. Sat realization. Chit, sat chit is realization of super soul. And sat chit ananda. Ananda is the bliss of loving exchange between the soul and the Lord. Sat chit ananda. So that's actual realization. Impersonalists, if they actually have any realization, and mostly it's just words, they're generally more attached to their sense gratification than anything spiritual. That's their kind of banner, as it were. But if you examine most impersonalists, they're just enjoyers. And then they use impersonalists as an excuse for not taking up spiritual life.
Or responsibility.
Or responsibility. It's all one. It's all one.
Following on from that, you said earlier, Sat, Chit, Ananda.
Yeah.
Like that. So Sat is eternal, Chit is consciousness, and Ananda is bliss. How can we prove that the Jiva is Ananda?
Ananda. Sat, Chit, Ananda. How can you prove it?
Yeah, Ishvara we understand is Ananda, Krishna is Rasa Radha. But how can we understand the Jiva?
Because he's part and parcel of Krishna. The Jiva is part and parcel of Krishna. So Krishna's qualities the Jiva has in an infinitesimal degree. So Krishna's Satchitananda Vigraha, the Jiva is also Satchitananda Vigraha, but dependent upon the Lord. That's the logic of it. In terms of realization, well, that's the path of Bhakti Yoga.
People have said to me that, the Tathagata Shakti is their marginal potency. So it hasn't been necessarily to the spiritual world. They don't really know. So that Ananda...
It's nothing to do with, no, it's intrinsic. The quality of Satchitananda Vigraha is intrinsic to the soul. And it manifests, it's a seed. The spiritual master plants the seed. You nurture the seed, follow the instructions, water the seed, and eventually you'll progress to the point where you know your Vigraha, you'll know who you are, but it doesn't come externally. It's your intrinsic nature. Was it answer the question? Or was it your question?
Yeah, partially.
Yeah.
The proof that we are Jiva Ananda is that we are constantly trying to look for these three qualities, Satchitananda. So we are trying to look for pleasure. So it's trying to prove that we are Ananda. Because we feel ourselves like at home in that energy.
If you have it, why would you look for it?
Because you've lost it. You're in such ignorance you've forgotten. It's like a man who's in a state of stupefaction. He's covered. We're not acting in keeping with our nature, so it becomes forgotten. We have to wake up.
So it's material pleasure, and we're looking for spiritual pleasure. Is that what you're saying?
Well, we're not really. We're still chasing the material, thinking we're going to find it here. But the point that Prabhu's making is Satchitananda, eternality, nobody wants to die. Ananda, we're always looking for knowledge, information, and we're looking for happiness. And so in the material world, these are, it's upside down, inside out. But we don't find eternity here. Knowledge is just how this relates with that. It's not real wisdom. And happiness or Ananda, you show me where it is. We don't find it. We find the opposite. But it's there. Because it's intrinsic to our nature. We're looking for that in the material world. And it's not here.
Right. Actually, I was reading something the other day, and it said people who are looking for heaven, they must be very unhappy because heaven is right here.
Who says everything's right here?
Yeah, so like if you're happy, then you're in heaven. But people who want to go to heaven, they must be unhappy here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, most people are. And even if you are even if you have a glimpse of heaven here, it ain't gonna last.
Right.
Is it?
Right. Yeah, I was reading this.
And even if you go to heaven, it ain't gonna last.
Right. Lord Brahma.
Even the heavenly regions are temporary, maybe millions of years, but it's not eternal.
Krishna is in your heart as Paramatma. He has your best interest at heart, right?
Yeah.
People ask sometimes, well, if Krishna's in my heart, Why does he allow me to do things that are against my best interest?
Because you have freedom. He gives you freedom. I can't say to you, Danishwar, love me. You can't demand love. It has to be freely given. So Krishna is impartial, actually. He's the observer and impartial, but how we want to he reciprocates with our intention. The Lord is very kind. What do you want? What do you want? He'll reciprocate. So if you want to forget him, he'll reciprocate, and you'll never come across spiritual matters. You don't want it? Okay, I'll arrange it. And if you want to find out about Godhead, if you're on a spiritual path looking, the Lord arranges for you to meet people who will guide you on the spiritual path.
So he loves us so much that he lets us do what we want.
Yeah.
He gives us the ability to do, even though it's against what we should be.
Even if it's against our interest, it's okay, you can do it. But there's always a cost. And at the same time, he's still accompanying us. Even if we're, a microbe in a cesspit, he's there as super soul. So wherever we are, whatever we're doing, he's there always accompanying us. And because Krishna says in the Gita, from me comes knowledge, remembrance, forgetfulness. We don't know how to do anything. We think we do, but we don't. I mean, you and I are getting old. How many times does the mental process is, what's that word you're looking for? Or someone's name you can't think of. So the Lord's very kind. He loves everybody, every living entity. But he reciprocates. He reciprocates without desiring not to reciprocate with the Lord. And he also reciprocates without desire when we do want to reciprocate. And Srila Prabhupada explains that we take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 100 steps towards us. So he's very eager for us to go back to Godhead, but he doesn't interfere. So that our approaching him is love. It isn't, can't approach God through fear. It has to be ultimately through love. Fear might be a motivation initially. We might be afraid of taking birth in low speech. We might be afraid of going to some unsavory part of the universe. That might be a kick that we need to get moving, but ultimately our relationship has to be based upon love, not fear.
So where does fear come from?
Forgetfulness of God. It comes from forgetfulness of our own nature and forgetfulness of our relationship with God. It's fear of something which isn't in our own, what we perceive as our self-interest. Something against my self-interest, I consider I'm fearful of it. And depending upon my idea of what is self, you see, for example, in the West, there are many Christians, saints, who gave up their lives rather than submit to some materialistic propaganda. They gave up their lives in full faith in Lord Jesus Christ. So their body was less important than their being fixed upon the spiritual path.
Because you spoke earlier about sort of samsara, which is kind of, to me, my understanding of that is kind of sort of like an attachment to material things, and which perhaps causes dissatisfaction, continuous dissatisfaction.
Yeah.
So thank you. So is that kind of sort of what it's related to?
Well, material world, it's fearful. Fearing, being afraid is part and parcel of life in the material world. We're all afraid of more taxes, we're afraid of losing the house, losing the job. The animal is fearful of being eaten, attacked. Every living being is fearful. And we try to take steps to avoid being in a fearful situation. And we may be okay for a while, but eventually death comes and we're fearful then.
Why is the material world like that?
Because it's foreign to our nature. How oil doesn't mix with water, and spirit doesn't mix with matter. But because we don't want God, we don't want our relationship with God, we want to be number one. So here it is. Here is a place where we can think we can be number one, but actually we're not. It's the prison house. And there are varying degrees of facility, depending on our deserts. We can go to regions where we live for a long, long time, very nice conditions, but then our karma runs out, and we're back down here. or there's other areas we can go with very, very miserable conditions of existence. But it's all karmic. It's not as if God's playing dice with the universe. Where we are it's a result of our activities and desires.
If it's eternal, like you said, suck, then where's the sense of urgency?
That's the problem. That's what we're lacking. If we had no sense of urgency, we would get very serious about our spiritual life. And sometimes it takes a few hard knocks to think like that. And one of it. So our lack of sense of urgency is complacency, which is ignorance. Ignorance. We're ignorant. Ignorance, a state of ignoring. We're ignoring the signs, as it were. Getting older, we see other people dying, we see other problems. How long before it happens to me? Maybe not this lifetime, but as long as I'm stuck in the material world, it's just one life after another after another. The same old, same old. Is everyone enjoying the prasadam? Who's the cook, Para?
It's a chincha. Inconceivable.
Oh, go ahead,
Inconceivable.
ginger.
It's better than anything else.
Oh, someone. Hare Krishna, you're just in time.
So I don't know if you all come every week, but I'm sure you know about Rath Yatra, which is a week on Sunday. Not this Sunday, Sunday after, Jagannath Rath Yatra. Meeting at Hyde Park Corner, 12 o'clock, week on Sunday. So please come.
14th of June, Sunday the 14th of June.
Yeah.
I've got some flies upstairs if anybody wants to take for free.
Say Hyde Park Corner, that's not where Marble Arch is, that's the other
Other side,
Yeah.
the other side.
No,
the other side.
the other side.
And it's the park area, not the road. We start in the park area, not on the road. So you have to come in.
First Rath Yatra.
Yeah, and then we
Yes, please.
walk all the way down to Trafalgar Square.
Yeah,
Yeah, we march. You've been before.
not to this one.
Which one was your first rock after London?
Which one? Which one you been?
No, not to that line.
Is anyone making a documentary about it?
Yeah? Yeah, he's the filmmaker. Here they are here. He's asking if you're making a documentary about it. I said, you're the filmmaker.
And Hare Krishna, those who are available during the daytime or afternoon, early evening, the Sankirtan, Namakirtan, what are they called? Harinam Rutri. I think they're called Harinam Rutri Sankirtan team are around. They normally come around this time for a couple of weeks. They are doing long Harinams. Sometimes you can catch up with them, sometimes they go to different parts of London before you get there.
Should explain what
But
Harinam
there's,
is.
all of them have been. Yeah, they have. So please come whenever you can. Come on the street chanting with us. And we need to distribute lots of flyers. We only received the flyers last week. Normally we are running out of them by this time. So please come with us on the street chanting from Soul Street every day. Officially 3 o'clock, 5:30, 7:30, but with this team we might be going for one more Harinam. So whenever you're available.
If any of you are in London on Saturday nights,
Yeah.
also, we take out, Para takes out the chanting party every Saturday night from the Soul Street Temple. It leaves between 7:30 and 7:45 every Saturday evening. About 2 hours chanting Kirtan, West End, very ecstatic. A lot of people chanting and dancing in the crowd. Really quite an amazing experience. So it's every Saturday. So those of you who've been on Harinam, I'm sure you know how that is. So tell your friends about it.
Saturday Night Fever.
Huh?
Saturday Night Spiritual Fever. That's what I call it.
Thank you. I stand corrected. Spiritual fever, yes.
It is to give that, that was give that to you that instead of give that, see,
So wash your hands, then you take the pot around, ask them if they want some more of it. Please, can do that.
Because I misplaced the piece of paper she gave me.
Like that here, or you?
What am I using it?
Oh, no.
So I see how it could if somebody else who I check my emails. I was trying to get my shoulder piece because I need to picture. I mean, reason was if I take a week, it takes hours before we get back to somebody else, and if I just go back to training, I can take straight back when we finish and then we can.
Yeah, they were pioneers.
I'm still just coming soon.
Is it possible to follow it?
I have to transfer the signature. What day is that?
It's actually this year it's on Saturday nights in the morning, so it's not going to get out. I've got all the racing. That's 1 year. He left 2 hours before again. Says I'm clear.
Just talk as that. Just put your hands up, okay?
The cars went on the left hand side, we started on the right hand side. I drove it. I overtook it. It was 2 hours. I inside the window. Christian was laying over. Martin out the window and says, Christian, you got to practice something.
Nem mentek véletlenül valamelyik rafiácsára, mert nekem az ő könyvben, hogyha valakivel ment a vezetni. No, the other one, the rolls. What is one thing?
No, I was only there the year that was really rainy. You know that year? I went there that year. It was really rainy. It was just like these little canopies. That was it. Standing like.
Where was that? Politician.
You spend what they're getting?
5,000 people. Really? And rain.
Oh,
last night was like trying to save 20,000 people.
no, don't keep it.
Nobody can see anything.
I guess all the what do they consider
Everybody's cheering for the beach, right?
Yeah, bits of everything.
I remember you mentioned one.
Pont az a baj, hogy most én értem, hogy a nő, az lesz, hogy kontrálni, és kiabálni, és közben meg nem tudok mondani. Szóval megveszünk nem ide szállja van, hogy a bővetet a szállja.
So I started trying to gamble again, so I dropped my change to play
Hát, hogy mennyire érdekeket már egy szóval nem az más. De ezeket én nem olvastam, nem hallottam. Az nem sok, vagy nem találkozom. Nem korábban, hanem csak az, hogy csőr, élet. Ez más. Valaki fiatal, nem tudjuk rendszer, csak az, hogy élet. Ez nem érettség. Senkit nem érdekel azon, hogy lesz a házasság. Tehát pont ezt mondtam, hogy azt akarom, hogy ugye hívott, és úgy az, hogy bajnálunk, és nem megfogják. Egy nap volt,